Okay. All right, good afternoon. We're live here at the National Capital Trolley Museum. We have Eric Madison, who's the NCTM secretary, and Regina Koch, who's recently joined the museum and has been working in the library. So in commemoration of the 59th anniversary of the end of streetcar service in Washington, we've pulled out a few items from our library to show you today. And then we're going to take you for a quick tour of the library, which we've started the process of cleaning up and organizing after a few years. Yep, go ahead.
So what we have here is a representation of some of the objects that we have in the library, in the library's collection. As you can see, it can be a range of things, so it's not just books and periodicals, but we also have some actual objects that would have been used on streetcars. To my right here, we have a destination sign from the WB&A Interurban Railroad. Then we also have this fare box. So do you want me to just tell a little bit more about this?
Sure.
Okay. So this is a fare register, I should say, from the Capital Traction Company, CT Co., which was one of the streetcar companies that operated here in Washington. And so this fare register would have been used on typically a two-man car. So motorman and a conductor. Conductor would have been responsible for collecting and also recording the fares. So the way that they would do this is use this register. So you can see it has different categories for things for cash fares versus tickets, whether the trip was inbound or outbound, and then counts for each. And so as a passenger would pay their fare to the conductor, they would pull some sort of a rope or device that would register the fare, and this was a way of doing the accounting. So at the end of the day, when they pulled the money and the tickets from the fare, it was a way to make sure that what was recorded on the register also matched up with what was collected in fares. So that's just one example of how fares were collected before the use of fare boxes and one-man cars. Another object that we have here are a couple of books here. This book here is actually from John Merrickin, who was the author of the book Every Hour on the Hour, which is the history of the Washington, Baltimore, and Annapolis Railroad. And as he was developing and writing his book, he collected a series or developed a series of binders that collected much of his notes and a manuscript from the development of the book. And as you flip through, you can see these are all typed out. Then also you can also see where there were some edits that he would make as he was reviewing and editing his book. And we have this here in the collection. This is one of, I think, 30 plus binders that he had developed as he was developing his book. So this is a very original historical artifact that we have for research purposes. And so eventually one day this will be available as a research tool. It won't leave here, obviously, because it's very unique to have. But this is just one example of the things that we have here in the library. The next object that I have here is from one of the streetcar companies in Washington, and it is actually a collection of all of the salaries of the employees that worked for the streetcar companies starting from about 1923 and going back, so 1920, 1919, 18. So you can get a sense of just how much do people make per week working for the streetcar companies. I'm going to try to read some of these upside down. This was the employee's name here. You've got another category for what type of laborer they were, and then for hours. So it looks like, these people made about 40 to 43 cents an hour. And then over here would have been a calculation for their annual salary, which was added later. And then let's see if I can find another example of this. And so here from 1921, you've got a breakdown of, again, the different types of employee categories. So total number of employees, and then there are some additional calculations that were written down here in pencil. And then you could also see just some of the additional notes that were collected here. This was useful. We had a visitor one day who came in and said that his grandfather had worked for one of the two streetcar companies in Washington at one time, and he wanted to know, how much did my grandfather make as a motorman? Well, we were able to give him at least an estimate. We couldn't find his name in the rolls, but we were at least able to give him a sense of like well, your grandfather worked, if he worked here in 1920 or 1921, this is how much he would have made. But as you can see, this is again another original object. Someone would have sat here and typed all of this out, and then made sure that the formatting and thing was all correct. So it speaks to a specific skill that may be disappearing, as you would have done this on a typewriter at the time. So you can see just how detailed the person had to be and what things they had to know as well. So there's just some other examples. And then one other thing I wanted to point out here, one of the things that we also have as part of the collection are various plans and drawings for various aspects of the streetcar system. So drawings for buildings, for cars themselves, for the electrical infrastructure. And what we have here is a set of plans that date from June 19th, 1908. And this is from the Capital Traction Company and the Anacostia Potomac River Railroad Company. And this is a design for Union Station Plaza and the approaches, and also for the construction of the conduit system that would have been used here in Washington. So, as you know, the streetcar system in Washington operated on a conduit system where they collected power from underneath the street. So this gives you an overview of the design that was involved. So this, what we're looking at here, is one of the cast iron yokes that would have been placed in the street. I think they were placed about every 6 feet or so. And then this gives you a sense of the conductor rails that would have carried the electricity, the positive and the negative. And then also, I don't think we have it on this one, but there's another drawing that indicates the insulators that would have been installed. That's on a drawing that's farther back. So you can see the dimensions, and this would have all been used as part of the construction. Here's the track gauge, 4 feet 8.5 inches for the running rails, and then the slot where the plow would have dropped below the street to collect the power from here. And so this was another example, the cross-section of how streetcars were powered. And this would have been a top-down look, so you can see kind of what the surface of the street would have looked like with the insulator hatches here, indicators for the running rail again, and then the slot rail right here in the middle. So these are various types of objects that we've got here at the museum that kind of demonstrate, show the complexity of the streetcar system and all of the things that were going involved. And one other thing I kind of wanted to point out is that you notice that these are all designs from over 100 years ago. So this would have been at a time when all of this would have been done mostly by hand. So someone would have sat at a drafting table and drawn all of this to scale and made sure that all of these, so you can see the types of skills that would have gone in to make sure that this, was correct, that it reflected the correct dimensions. Now, was there anything else you wanted me to talk about, or were you going to cover?
I think okay. So real quick, we do have a couple smaller items here of interest. We have a conductor cap badge from the Washington and Old Dominion Railway. And then also, we just recently discovered this, actually today, a employee badge from the Great Falls and Old Dominion Railroad. Then we also have a switch lock here from the Annapolis, Washington, and Baltimore Railroad. That was a predecessor to the WB&A that we mentioned earlier. And basically, this would have been used for securing the track switches that we have as well here at the Trolley Museum. So those are some of the artifacts that we pulled out. Now we're going to have our librarian take us for a quick tour of our archives and show us some of the work that she's done to clean it up.
Hi, here is the Mills Dean III Library. And as you come in, on the right we have shelves of the books that we've collected, and most of these are now in our catalog. On the left side, we have a special collection called the Thomas Williams Collection, and he donated more than 1,000 titles here that are all arranged very nicely. And right next to the bookshelves, we have drawers that have like transit maps of all kinds, and some different car letterings, and I think, let's see, here we have some newspaper articles, and like a picture. Those are all collected here. As we go to the back, and around we have periodicals. of all kinds. Here's the Orange Empire Railway Museum Gazette. And we have Brill Magazine. And in the back here we have some cabinets where we store a lot of artifacts. And some very old bound journals are over here. Let's see, what else? And on the wall we have quite a few pictures. I think, Eric, you can tell me. I think this picture right here, was this one, like one of the last cars?
Yes, so this is a photograph of DC Transit car number 1053. This was an experimental PCC that was built in 1935. It operated primarily on the Friendship Heights line up along Wisconsin Avenue up until about 1953, and then at that time they were pulled out of service and largely were used for special events. So if you can see here, there's no destination really. They've got a specials destination and then a binning exposure, which would indicate that this is a photograph, most likely from a rail fan trip, probably towards the end of streetcar service in 1962. This car came to our museum and we operated it for a number of years, but unfortunately this was one of the cars that we lost in our fire in September of 2003. But we were able to save some objects from it so that we hope to reuse for future exhibits later.
All right, great. Well, we hope you enjoyed this look at our library and some of the changes that we've been making. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them now. If you're watching this later, feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll do the best that we can to reply and get you the information. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We appreciate your time. We also want to give a quick shout out to Regina, as well as Eric, for taking the time to meet with us today, and then Regina as well for all of the work that she's done in the library here at the museum. Thanks a lot. Take care, and we'll see you all later.